the left is downright demonic now. When you are dealing with a force and an ideology that finds it perfectly fine to mutilate young children.
That's not happening. I don't find it perfectly fine to mutilate young children, and young children are not being mutilated. And to call your enemy demonic, by the way, is the exact thing that happened in Rwanda leading up to the Rwandan genocide. And it happened in World War II leading up to the Holocaust. Thank you, but our princess is in another castle. Just kidding. Ha ha ha. Bye-bye. This game, man. Anyway, there you go. Mario 3. Great game. This is one of the stages in the lead up to a genocide. There are stages. You can look this up. I've actually talked about it before. Stages to genocide. Here, let me just pull this up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. The 10 stages of genocide. And again, it's not just the Holocaust. Genocides happen outside of that. And they've happened since. Many, as a matter of fact. Uyghur Muslims. Canada enacted a genocide on natives in a way. It's classified as a genocide when they basically they took their children and homed them with white people and killed their culture. That's part of the process of a genocide. The U.S. committed one on Native Americans when they did the Trail of Tears. That was a genocide. A lot of people don't recognize that. This is the kind of language that you hear leading up to genocides. Number one, these are the 10 stages. 1, classification. The differences between people are not respected. There's a division of us and them, which can be carried out using stereotypes or excluding people who are perceived to be different. 2, symbolization. This is a visual manifestation of hatred. Jews in Nazi Europe were forced to wear yellow stars to show that they were different. Discrimination. The dominant group denies civil rights or even citizenship to identified groups. The 1935 Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of their German citizenship, made it illegal for them to do many jobs or to marry German non-Jews. Dehumanization. Those perceived as different are treated with no form of human rights or personal dignity. During the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, Tutsis were referred to as cockroaches. The Nazis referred to Jews as vermin. And what was it that we just heard Lou Dobbs say?
Straightforwardly evil at work. He is fighting the forces of evil. And I don't think any of us should ever suggest that this isn't straightforwardly evil at work. The left is downright demonic now.
You catching this? The left is downright demonic now. I mean, as far as the 10 stages go, you've got organization. Genocides are always planned. You've got polarization. Propaganda begins to be spread by hate groups. That's already happening here in the U.S. Preparation. Perpetrators plan the genocide. They often use euphemisms such as the Nazis' phrase, the final solution, to cloak their intentions. They create fear of the victim group, building up armies and weapons. Persecution. Victims are identified because of their ethnicity or religion, and death lists are drawn up. People are sometimes segregated into ghettos, deported, or starved, and property is often expropriated. Genocidal massacres begin. 9. Extermination. The hate group murders their identified victims in a deliberate and systematic campaign of violence. Millions of lives have been destroyed or changed beyond recognition through genocide. And step number 10, denial. The perpetrators or later generations deny the existence of any crime. And it goes full circle. Those are the steps to genocide. How about this one right here? This is from November 12th, 2023 at a Trump rally.
In honor of our great veterans on Veterans Day, pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections. The threat from...
I mean, you catching this? He literally used the word vermin. Could it be any more on the nose than that? Is it possible for it to be more on the nose than that? To be more obvious? The dude is calling his political enemies vermin.
Outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
How about this one? October 4th, 2023.
Go to the, you could go to a banana republic and pick the worst one, and you're not going to see what we're witnessing now. No control whatsoever. Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from, and we know they come from prisons.
I mean, this is just completely made up. This is him fabricating fear about immigrants. Immigrants are out to get us. They're coming for us. They're going to ruin our lives. They're forming an army. They're destroying us. And blah, 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 blah. You know that there's a hole in the border. There's an opening in the border for a reason. It's called a humanitarian corridor so that refugees can apply for asylum status. It is an internationally legal requirement. The United States must have a humanitarian corridor accessible so that refugees can apply for asylum status. So yeah, people come over the border a lot. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, commonly from countries that the United States had a hand in destabilizing. And what does Trump say about those people who are coming over, applying for asylum status, just trying to survive, who a lot of the time have just like lost their entire family, everybody, who may have just watched horrific things happen to their wife and their kid in front of them? What does Trump say about those people who are desperate to get out of that situation at any cost? They're so desperate to get out of that situation that they're willing to swim across a river, the Rio Grande River, that has razor wire in it to cut people to ribbons. That's real. They're willing to risk the extreme persecution that comes along with being a being an asylum seeker in the United States, because it's better than what they came from. Imagine how bad it was for them to be willing to go through this. And what does Donald Trump say about them?
We know they come from mental institutions, insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country. It's so bad, and people are coming in with disease. People are coming in with every possible thing that you can have.
I mean, this is all lies. He's lying. These are all lies intended to demonize people. And for the record, that whole vermin thing that he said earlier, exact, direct quote from Hitler. This thing that he just said about poisoning the blood.
Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country.
Direct, exact quote from Hitler. Another. I mean, this guy's ex-wife claimed that he had a book of Hitler's speeches by his bedside. The only surprising thing about that to me is the idea that this dude even reads. Donald Trump represents the far right. He represents people who want to kill anybody who's not white, straight, cis, and Christian. And it does not get more disturbing, honestly, to me, than some of the stuff that Donald Trump has said in recent days. What we just listened to is a lead up to genocide. A real full-blown lead up to genocide. What we are listening to right now with Lou Dobbs is a lead up to genocide. This is what happened in World War II. This is what happened in 1991, I believe, during the Rwandan genocide. This is how it works. You know, you have to deny people their humanity. Do you know that in the Capitol building, the federal Capitol building of the United States, there's like I don't know, is it called a rotunda or something? They have statues of influential people all like lined up all around the area, right? And like along the walls. They have a statue of Reagan, and Reagan's statue has one line along it with rubble from the Berlin Wall in it. It's kind of cool. Certain states have certain people. I think that was California's, because Reagan was a governor in California before he was the president. Do you know who Nebraska has? Chief Standing Bear is his name. I couldn't remember. Yes, Chief Standing Bear. You know what? I have a picture of it, as a matter of fact. Just looking up his name showed a picture. Here, this is the statue at the Capitol building of Chief Standing Bear. It's big. It's probably twice as big as a human. So I am about 6 feet tall. It was about 12 feet tall, probably. Chief Standing Bear from Nebraska is famous for having argued in front of the Supreme Court that he was a human being. He cut his hand, like right there in the courtroom, and said, "When you cut me, don't I bleed? I am a man like you are a man." Chief Standing Bear established through the court system that Native Americans are humans. Before Chief Standing Bear, the official position of the United States government was, they're not humans, they're animals. Leading up to genocide, the target group is always viewed as lesser than human or inhuman, demonic, if you will, vermin, type of thing that poisons the blood of a society, you know? And this isn't the only example either. We're listening to Lou Dobbs say this right now. This is by no stretch of the imagination the only example. I have 1,000 examples of this. Guy named John Zimmerak goes on Eric Metaxas's radio show. You may not be familiar with Eric Metaxas, but your grandpa probably is. Extremely famous, well-known, influential among the older generation. Has a 2-hour radio show every single day. And he gets this guy named John Zimmerak on to talk, like pretty frequently. And John Zimmerak is the guy in the top right corner here. Eric Metaxas, bottom left. Listen to this.
This is spiritual warfare.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. This is from mid-August 2022.
And we are now in the Normandy landing of spiritual warfare. The Democratic Party is possessed by preternatural evil. It is not a human institution anymore.
You catching this? Not a human institution anymore. Well, what is it then?
It is an instrument of wicked spirits. This is demonic. Our enemies are demonic. There's no turning the other cheek. There's no being winsome. There's no compromise possible with these people.
And I want to be clear, just theologically, because
Yeah, then he goes into this explanation about the theological implications, blah, blah, blah. It's irrelevant. He agrees with Zimmerak, but it's unimportant. Anyway, this is what one would expect from the lead up to a genocide. This is the lead up to a genocide. This is the lead up to a genocide. I cannot stress that enough. You need to take this seriously. If you aren't sure if you fully believe this, if you're not sure if this is really like how it's viewed or how it works or whatever, this is how it works. This is the lead up to a genocide. Seriously.
The left is downright demonic now. When you are dealing with a force and an ideology that finds it perfectly fine to mutilate young children.
That's a lie. The left does not find it perfectly fine to mutilate children. Just completely fabricated. I mean, the claim that he's making here it's rooted in the idea that trans people should be allowed to get, like, trans surgery, for example. And now, trans people should be allowed to get trans surgery. Of course. I don't see why anybody would think otherwise. That's called freedom, baby. What happened to freedom? Suddenly he doesn't give a shit about freedom, huh? No, he doesn't want freedom. He wants to impose his religious beliefs upon people. That is what he wants. That is his goal. That is what he has an interest in doing. Imposing his religious beliefs on people, okay? Doesn't give a shit about freedom, never did. But, for what it's worth, do you know how many people under the age of 18 have had bottom surgery since the founding of the country? Toss out numbers for me. 5,000, 100,000? 0. Because it's illegal. It's always been illegal. There are no children, quote unquote, getting mutilated, as they'd put it. There are no kids. There's nobody under the age of 18 getting bottom surgery. It's not happening. It is not happening. Now, there are some, I wouldn't even call them kids, because they're not really kids. They're teenagers. Or older, say 16, 17, 18 years old. Sometimes they get mastectomies or they get like breast reductions or whatever. That's necessary. I knew a girl in high school who had to have a breast reduction because it was giving her back problems. That needs to be available to kids. Do you know how many nose jobs there were in 2022, I think it was? I looked this up recently. I don't remember. Do you know how many there were in a single year? I think the year was 2022. 33,000. 33,000 nose jobs for kids between the ages of 12 and 19. Do you hear a word from these people about kids getting nose jobs? About, quote unquote, mutilating themselves then? You hear anything about it? Not a peep. Literally not happening. It's literally not happening. People are literally not having trans surgeries under the age of 18. Sometimes they get mastectomies depending on if they need it or depending on the situation, I guess. I think 2,000 a year are performed on people between the ages of 14 and 18. Like, depending on the circumstances and the needs and stuff. 32,000 nose jobs in 2022. And what do these people say about it? They don't care about kids. They don't care about mutilation. They don't care about any of that. You know what they care about? They care about demonizing their political enemy. They care about calling them vermin, claiming they're poisoning the blood of America, quote unquote. They care about creating a minority group that is hated and detested and feared and despised at any cost. They want to make sure that people are scared shitless of any group. Doesn't really matter who. In this case, it's trans people. But Mexicans work too. Any minority group will work. That's what Lou Dobbs is doing right now. Literally fulfilling one of the stages to genocide. As we watch. That is what the guy's doing.
To do so in the name of affirming gender. Our medical establishment is corrupt in permitting it.
It's not permitted. That's not happening. Like, this is just completely made up.
The legal system is corrupt, and certainly the Marxist Dems who control the federal government in this.
There are no Marxists, quote unquote, in the federal government or any state governments. I don't know of a single Marxist, whatever that means, in government, anywhere in U.S. government at all. Can he name one, quote unquote, Marxist? And what's more, can he define Marxist for me? What the hell do you mean when you say Marxist exactly?
White House.
I mean, if you notice, he switched from trans people as the eternal enemy, as the vermin that's poisoning the blood. He switched from trans people to Marxists. Donald Trump prefers to use Mexicans or refugees in general as his eternal enemy, as the vermin.
Are corrupt. Ken Paxton has to have this power, and only an evil force would have removed the capacity to prosecute lawbreakers and criminals of the sort who commit voter fraud.
Ken Paxton must have this power. He must be given emergency power to deal with these evil, law-breaking monsters. I mean, really think about what is being said here. Really think about how this applies to the 10 stages of genocide. When you realize, like, how similar this language is to, like, the literal words that Hitler used, it hits hard. It's about as disturbing as it gets, for real. The claim you're making about minors getting bottom surgery isn't actually accurate. Intersex babies used to have gender reassignment surgery performed them all. Have gender reassignment surgery performed them all the time. Okay. That's not a that's not a trans affirming surgery. It's not bottom surgery for a minor for trans affirming purposes. That's very different. I appreciate your position, your viewpoint on it, but I completely disagree. And also, even in that case, like, yes, there are intersex people. There's one famous case, I believe, of an intersex person who received a surgery to change their sex, basically. And there was like a case study on it, and it was super unethical and everything else. But this isn't the point that I'm making is that this isn't done. Let me rephrase. It's not done electively. There's no elective trans affirming surgery. There's no elective bottom surgery. I should start saying there's no elective bottom surgery, because sure, maybe 2 or 3 cases of like medically necessary surgeries when somebody's like a baby, maybe. But that's not what they're talking about anyway. So it doesn't really apply. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And don't you love it how he doesn't say a goddamn f***ing word about circumcision? Literal mutilation of children. That is literally what circumcision is. Mutilating children's junk. And he doesn't say a word about it. Huh. Weird. Don't do that to your kids, by the by. I was watching David Pakman not too long ago, and somebody brought it up. They were like, how do you feel about circumcision? And he said, I don't take a position on it. I don't know one way or another. I don't care if they do it, and I don't care if they don't do it. What is wrong with you that you would not be vehemently against genital mutilation, like literal genital mutilation, in all seriousness, before the person can consent to it?
There's just no doubt about it. He's in the right. And by the way, if you want to underline that, just look at all of those on the left who are trying to destroy him. It's been now.
Talking about Ken Paxton, I guess. Ken Paxton is in the right. And if you want to have that reaffirmed, if you want to be sure that Ken Paxton's right, just look at people who are criticizing him. If people criticize somebody, then it means that that person is correct, apparently. What?
A 2-year battle that I've witnessed fairly up close between Ken Paxton and the Marxist Dems who mean to take over that state. They've got a head start on it.
They sure do. Let me go to you, Dutch, out of this. Taking the state level, even states like South Carolina where you live, I mean, this is important stuff we're talking about.
These people need help. For real. This is nuts. And again, this is not happening. This whole, this fear that they seem to live in, that, their children are going to be, taken and given trans surgeries or whatever against their will, that's not happening. That was never happening. Get help, people. For real. Get help. And one more time, this is on the stage, or this is one of the stages of genocide. We are on the road to genocide right now.